before the world had a name, before the oceans found their shores, before the first breath was drawn into the first lungs, there was a tree, not just any tree. A tree so vast that its roots drank from the wells of three worlds. A tree whose branches scraped the ceiling of heaven itself. A tree that had been standing since before the concept of standing even existed. Its name was Yggdrasil. And somewhere in its shadow, somewhere between the howling winds of Niflheim below and the golden halls of Asgard above, a one-eyed god sat in silence. Watching. Always watching. His name was Odin. And he had not always had only one eye. There is a kind of loneliness that only the powerful understand. When you sit at the top of all things, when warriors pray to your name before battle, when the dying call out to you with their last breath, when kings build temples in your honor and sacrifice their finest horses so that your favor might fall upon them, there is still something that gnaws at you in the quiet hours. The feeling that you do not know enough. Odin, the Allfather, the Lord of Asgard, the king of the Aesir gods, the wielder of Gungnir, the spear that never missed, felt this gnawing more than any creature alive. He sat upon Hlidskjalf, his great throne that rose above all the nine worlds, and he could see everything. Every river, every mountain, every battlefield, every birth, every death. He could see everything, but he could not understand everything. And for a mind like Odin's, restless, hungry, burning with a curiosity that no feast could satisfy, seeing without understanding was its own kind of blindness. Every morning, before the sun had properly decided whether to rise, Odin would send out his two ravens. Their names were Hugin and Munin, thought and memory. They would leave his shoulders at dawn, two black wings beating against the pale sky, and they would fly across all nine worlds, through the frost of Niflheim, over the fire of Muspelheim, across the green fields of Midgard where humans lived their brief and precious lives. They would return at dusk, landing on his shoulders, whispering everything they had seen into his ears. And still it was not enough. Because knowledge gathered by ravens is knowledge of surfaces. It tells you what happened. It does not tell you why. It does not tell you what will happen next. It does not give you the deep understanding that lets you see the pattern beneath the pattern, the truth beneath the truth. For that kind of knowledge, there was only one source in all the nine worlds, Mimir's Well. Deep beneath Yggdrasil, in the realm of the frost giants called Jotunheim, there existed a well so ancient that even the gods did not know who had dug it. It sat at the base of one of Yggdrasil's three great roots, the root that reached down into the cold northern world, and its waters were not like ordinary waters. They were dark, almost black, so still that they looked like polished obsidian rather than liquid. And they contained everything. Every secret ever whispered, every truth ever buried, every event that had ever happened and every event that had not happened yet. The beginning of all things and, most importantly, most terrifyingly, the end. The waters of Mimir's Well contained the full shape of fate itself. But you could not simply walk up to this well and drink from it. That was not how it worked. The well was guarded, not by a monster, not by walls or locked gates or armies of warriors. It was guarded by something far more formidable. It was guarded by Mimir himself. Mimir was the wisest being in all the nine worlds. Some said he was a god. Others said he was something older than gods, a primordial intelligence that had existed since before the worlds were shaped from the void. He lived beside his well, and he drank from it daily, and every sip added another layer to an understanding so vast and so deep that even Odin could barely comprehend it. No one drank from Mimir's well without Mimir's permission, and Mimir granted his permission to no one. No one, that is, until one cold morning, when a tall figure in a gray traveling cloak walked out of the mist and stood at the edge of the well, and looked down into those impossibly dark waters and said, "I want to drink." Mimir looked up from where he sat, his ancient eyes calm and unsurprised. He had, after all, seen this moment coming for a very long time. "I know," he said. "I have been waiting for you, Allfather." There are moments in every great story where the entire weight of everything that has come before comes to rest on a single conversation. This was one of those moments. Odin stood on one side of the well. Mimir sat on the other. Between them, the dark water waited in perfect silence. "You already know why I'm here," Odin said. It was not a question. "You want wisdom," Mimir replied. "Not knowledge, you have ravens for knowledge. You want wisdom. The kind that lets a king see not just what is, but what must be. The kind that prepares you for what is coming." Odin said nothing. He did not need to. Mimir had just described perfectly the ache that had been living behind his eyes for longer than most worlds had existed. "You know the price," Mimir said. "I have heard stories," Odin said carefully, "but I want to hear it from you. Mimir stood up slowly, unfolding himself from his seat like a shadow uncurling from a wall. He walked to the edge of the well and looked down into the water, and for a moment it seemed like he was watching something in its depths, something only he could see. "The well does not give its gifts freely," Mimir said. "It is not cruel. It is not malicious. It simply understands something that most beings spend their lives refusing to understand." He paused. "Nothing of true value comes without sacrifice. Not love. Not peace. Not power. And certainly not wisdom." "What does it want?" Odin asked. Mimir turned and looked at him directly. Those ancient eyes, dark as the well water, studying the Allfather's face with quiet intensity. "Something irreplaceable," he said. "Something that cannot be bought back, traded for, or recovered. The well demands a sacrifice that costs you something real. Not gold, not glory, not someone else's suffering. Something of yours. Something precious." Odin stood very still. "An eye," Mimir said quietly. "The price is one eye." The wind moved through Yggdrasil's branches far above them. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, one of Odin's wolves perhaps, or perhaps just the wild ones that roamed the edges of the 9 worlds. The sound faded into the vast silence. Odin said nothing for a long time. He looked at the well. He looked at his own reflection in the water, 2 eyes looking back at him. 2 whole, functioning, seeing eyes. Eyes he had had since the beginning. Eyes that had watched the world's form. Eyes that had seen wars and treaties and births and deaths and the slow turning of ages. Then he said, "Do it." There are things that are easy to describe and things that are not. What happened next falls firmly in the second category. Not because it was extraordinarily violent. In the context of Norse mythology, where gods fought world serpents and bound chaos wolves with magical ribbons, this was relatively quiet. But because what Odin gave up in that moment was not just a physical eye. It was perspective. It was the ability to see the world as it had always been seen, balanced, bilateral, full. After the sacrifice, his view of everything was different. Literally, the world tilted. Depth perception shifted. What had been familiar and comfortable was now strange and asymmetrical. He knelt at the edge of the well, and Mimir took what the well required, and Odin did not make a sound. Not because he felt nothing, he felt everything, but because he was Odin. Because he had chosen this. Because the whole point of a genuine sacrifice is that you give something that genuinely costs you, and then you carry the weight of that cost without complaint. His eyes sank into the darkness of the well, and the well gave back what it had promised. Odin cupped his hands and drank. What happened in the next moment is impossible to describe in human language, because human language was built by creatures who experience time in one direction, who can only hold a limited number of thoughts simultaneously, who process reality through the narrow channel of 5 senses and a brain that evolved on a small planet in an unremarkable corner of the cosmos. But let us try. Imagine every book ever written, every song ever sung, every conversation ever had, every dream ever dreamed, all of it flooding into your mind in a single instant. Not as noise, not as chaos, but as a perfectly organized, perfectly interconnected web of understanding, each piece fitting precisely into every other piece, the whole pattern suddenly visible and comprehensible and beautiful. Imagine knowing not just what is happening but why it is happening. Not just where the river flows but why water moves the way it moves, why stone wears away over centuries, why the fish swim upstream to die. Imagine knowing the future. Not as a fixed script but as a probability space, 1,000 possible paths, and the wisdom to see which ones lead where, and the understanding to know which choices matter and which ones do not. That is what Odin gained. He knelt by the well for a long time afterward, very still. Not unconscious. Not overwhelmed. Processing. Integrating. Becoming, slowly, the thing he had always been reaching toward. When he finally stood, Mimir was watching him. "Well," the ancient guardian said. Odin turned to face him. One eye open to the world. One eye gone into the darkness. "Now I understand," he said. It was the simplest sentence he had ever spoken. And possibly the truest. He walked back to Asgard slowly. He did not take Sleipnir, his 8-legged horse who could travel between worlds in the time it took most beings to take a breath. He walked, on foot, through Jotunheim's cold forests, past the frost giants who watched him from between the trees with wary, calculating eyes. Across the Bifrost Bridge, its rainbow light shimmering around him. Through the golden streets of Asgard itself, past the warriors and the gods who stopped and stared, because the Allfather was returning from somewhere, and he had left with 2 eyes and he was coming back with 1. No one asked him what had happened. They could see it on his face. Not grief exactly. Not pain, he had moved past pain already. something more complicated. Something that lived in the space between loss and gain, between the thing given up and the thing received. Wisdom has a weight to it that knowledge does not. Knowledge tells you, winter is coming. Wisdom tells you, winter is coming and it will be harder than last year, and 3 of the people you love will not survive it, and there is nothing you can do to stop it, and the most merciful thing you can do is make sure they do not know what is coming. Knowledge is a gift. Wisdom is a responsibility. Odin had wanted wisdom. He had received it. And now he had to live with everything it showed him. He had seen Ragnarok, not as a vague prophecy, not as a rumor passed down through generations of nervous storytellers. He had seen it clearly, the full shape of it, the sequence of events, the chain of causes and effects that would lead inevitably to the twilight of the gods. He had seen Fenrir, the great wolf, breaking his chains. He had seen the Midgard serpent rising from the ocean. He had seen Loki, his blood brother and greatest source of chaos, leading the armies of the dead. He had seen himself on the battlefield in Fenrir's jaws. He had seen the end. And he had kept walking. Because this was the gift that the well's water gave beyond all others. Not the knowledge of doom, but the acceptance of it. The understanding that an ending is not a failure. That the worth of a thing is not determined by how long it lasts, but by what it was while it existed. Asgard would fall. The gods would die. And Odin, knowing this, chose to love Asgard anyway. Chose to protect it anyway. Chose to gather his warriors, the Einherjar, the heroic dead who trained in Valhalla's halls, not because he believed they could prevent Ragnarok, but because the act of gathering them, of honoring them, of preparing for the fight even knowing the outcome, was itself a form of meaning. You do not have to win to matter. You just have to show up. Here is something most people do not know about Odin's eye. It did not simply sink to the bottom of the well and sit there in the dark, forgotten and inert. The well, or whatever ancient intelligence operated through the well, used it. Mimir's well could see things that no living creature could see. It could perceive events across time, across worlds, across the thin membrane between what is and what might be. But perception without interpretation is just noise. To truly understand what the well saw, it needed a perspective. It needed an eye. Odin's eye, floating in those dark waters, became the well's window. The well's way of understanding what it perceived. In a sense, Odin gave the well a piece of his consciousness, a fragment of the divine intelligence that had been looking out at the 9 worlds since the beginning, and in return, the well gave Odin access to a form of sight that transcended what eyes can normally see. They became, in a strange way, partners. Odin would sometimes come back to the well in the long years afterward, and sit beside it in silence. Not to drink, 1 drink was enough. Not to ask questions, he already knew the answers to most of them. But just to sit. To be near the part of himself he had given away. To commune, in whatever way a god communes with the fragment of his own consciousness drifting in an ancient well at the roots of the world tree. Mimir was always there on those visits. The 2 of them would sit in comfortable silence as the wind moved through Yggdrasil's branches overhead, and the dark water stayed perfectly still, and somewhere deep in its depths an eye watched back. In the years after Mimir's well, Odin changed. Not in ways that were immediately obvious. He still sat on Hlidskjalf. He still sent out Hugin and Munin every morning. He still held court in Asgard's halls, still attended the great feasts, still rode into battle when battles came. From the outside, he was still the Allfather, tall, gray-cloaked, staff in hand, the single eye burning with a cold and ancient intelligence. But the quality of his decisions changed. Before the well, Odin had been powerful and cunning. He had been a strategist, a warrior, a king who ruled through strength and force of personality. His wisdom had been the wisdom of experience, hard-won, practical, but fundamentally reactive. After the well, he became something else. He became patient in a way that gods rarely are. He started playing long games, setting events in motion that would not bear fruit for decades or centuries. He began paying attention to humans in a way that was unusual even for a god already known for wandering Midgard in disguise. He would sit in taverns and listen to mortal conversations. He would sit at crossroads and watch travelers make decisions. He would attend funerals and births and marriages, not as a deity manifesting his divine presence, but as a gray-robed wanderer who sat in the corner and watched. He was learning. Wisdom had shown him the broad shape of things, but wisdom also teaches you that the broad shape is built from small moments. The fate of worlds is decided not just in the halls of gods but in the quiet choices of ordinary people. The farmer who decides to stay and fight, the mother who raises her child to be brave, the poet who writes down the old stories so they are not forgotten. Odin wanted to understand those moments. He wanted to know not just the pattern but the threads it was woven from. And so he wandered. And so he watched. And so he carried his sacrifice with him, one empty eye socket hidden beneath the brim of a wide hat, as a reminder every single day of the price of understanding. The Norse people who told this story were not naive. They were not telling it simply as a cool myth about a god who did something dramatic. They were using it, as all the best myths are used, to say something true about the human experience in a way that would stick in memory and heart longer than any lecture or sermon. And what they were saying was this: understanding costs something. Not the shallow understanding that comes from reading one book or listening to one lecture or having one conversation. The deep understanding, the kind that actually changes how you see the world, the kind that makes you a better parent, a better leader, a better friend, a better human being, that kind requires you to give something up. Sometimes it requires you to give up your comfort, your certainty, your assumption that you already know enough. Sometimes it requires you to sit with perspectives that challenge or unsettle you, to genuinely listen to people you disagree with, to examine your own beliefs with the same critical eye you turn on others. Sometimes it requires you to give up your ego. The eye is a symbol. It stands for every sacrifice every person has ever made in the pursuit of genuine understanding. Every night stayed up reading instead of watching television. Every difficult conversation approached with openness instead of defensiveness. Every moment of letting go of a comforting false belief in exchange for an uncomfortable true one. Odin did not regret it. In all the stories, in all the centuries of Norse mythology, there is no moment where the Allfather looks at his reflection and wishes he had two eyes again. There is grief, sometimes, the quiet grief of knowing what you have lost, but not regret, because he knows what the eye bought him. He knows the depth of understanding that lives in him now, the clarity with which he can see the pattern beneath the pattern. He knows that the sacrifice was real and the gift was real and the exchange, painful as it was worth it. Every evening, without fail, Hugin and Munin return. They come out of the fading sky, two black shapes against the gold and purple of dusk, and they land on Odin's shoulders with the soft sound of feathers settling. They have been everywhere. They have seen everything. They carry the weight of the day's events in their bright black eyes, and they lean close to the Allfather's ears and whisper. And Odin listens. It is said that he always fears, slightly, their return. Not because he is afraid of what they might tell him, he already knows most of it or can guess it, but because there is an old Norse poem that speaks of Hugin and Munin, in which Odin says he worries about Hugin going out each morning and not returning, but that he worries more about Munin. Thought lost is painful, but memory lost is devastating. If memory fails, if Munin does not return, then all the experience, all the accumulated understanding, all the long and costly education of a life fully lived becomes inaccessible. You are left with the capacity to think but nothing to think from. You are a library with all its books removed. This too is a very human fear. And this too is why the Norse people told this story. To say, protect your memory, protect your experience. The things you have lived through, the lessons you have learned, the understanding you have gathered, these are not simply background noise. They are your most precious possession. They are the foundation on which every future choice will be made. Guard them. As Odin guards Mimir's well. As the well guards the eye. Somewhere, even now, if you believe in such things, and perhaps even if you do not, Odin is watching. He is sitting on his throne above the 9 worlds, his single eye scanning the vast panorama of existence. His ravens are out. His wolves, Jerry and Freki, lie at his feet. Gungnir rests against his shoulder. The wind from all 9 worlds moves through the branches of Yggdrasil, and the great tree holds everything together in its roots and branches and its 10,000 years of silence. He knows what is coming. He has always known. Ragnarok is out there somewhere on the timeline, closer or further depending on which paths get walked, which choices get made, which chains hold and which ones do not. The wolves are growing. The serpent is restless. Loki, wherever he is always thinking. And Odin? Odin is preparing, choosing his warriors, watching the humans, wandering the roads of Midgard in his gray cloak, asking questions, offering advice to those who will take it, occasionally performing small miracles for those who need them, always observing, always learning, always adding to the deep well of understanding that lives inside him now alongside the memory of what it cost. He is not afraid. Fear, the well's wisdom taught him, is a response to uncertainty. And Odin is the least uncertain being in the 9 worlds. He is not sad. Sadness, the well's wisdom taught him, is a response to loss without meaning. And Odin has found meaning in every loss he has ever experienced, including the one that stares back at him, empty, every time he passes a reflecting pool. He is something harder to name. Something that lives in the space between readiness and acceptance. Something that looks at the world clearly with all its beauty and all its approaching darkness and chooses, actively, deliberately, every single day, to love it anyway, to protect it anyway, to show up anyway. The one-eyed god stands at the edge of forever, watching the worlds he tends with the same steady gaze he has turned on them for an eternity. And in the well far below, at the roots of the world tree, in the dark and perfect water, an eye looks back at the sky, and it sees everything. The Norse did not worship Odin because he was invincible. They worshipped him because he was not. They worshipped him because he looked at everything he stood to lose, his eye, his son, his world, his life, and he said, "Yes, this is worth it. I will pay what must be paid. I will learn what must be learned. I will carry what must be carried." And then he went ahead and did it. That is what wisdom looks like in the Norse tradition. Not certainty, not power, not safety. Eyes open, one of them missing, still watching, still learning, still here. If this story gave you something to carry tonight, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and until next time, may Odin's ravens bring you only good news.